Hello, my name is Emily Brownstead, and I will be presenting my research capstone. How do high school teachers analyze and understand a student's gifted student service plan and implement appropriate extended learning strategies into their classrooms? I teach at Boone County High School, which is the third largest district in Kentucky. We're up in Florence, Kentucky in the north. And my research was conducted on 8 regular classroom teachers from varying subjects. And I wanted to study what is teacher awareness of gifted student service plans, how do teachers accommodate and differentiate for their gifted students? Do teachers even know how to access a gifted student service plan within Infinite Campus? And then, do they know the areas students are identified as gifted and talented in? And then, how to extend student learning specifically for those levels of giftedness? All classroom teachers in the regular classroom have students identified as gifted and talented, and yet many are not aware on how to access gifted student service plans and implement appropriate differentiation in their classrooms for their students' unique needs. So this study was to investigate the teacher awareness of gifted education and their differentiation. I'm very hopeful that this study will benefit Boone County High School by providing better teacher training for gifted learners and purposeful professional developments for teachers to implement differentiation for gifted learners. I conducted lots of research on research studies and compiled my findings into 3 main themes. The first theme was on teacher training and awareness of gifted education. I found numerous studies that showed there is a lack of teacher understanding of gifted education and a need for more training. Many teachers had heard that you should differentiate, but didn't have the practice of implementing those strategies. Also, a theme was the issues and implications of gifted education. There is an underrepresentation of minority students in gifted education, as well as the underserving of students who are English language learners or possibly twice exceptional, meaning they have a 504 plan or an IEP, as well as being identified as gifted. And on top of that, what about students who show issues with perfectionism or underachievement? These are issues that affect the gifted, and teachers need to be prepared for them. A final theme was accommodating and differentiating. Numerous studies showed the benefits of supporting gifted students in the regular classroom. But in order to do this, gifted students must be challenged with efficient differentiation. And that can be in various enrichment, pull-out services, acceleration, or activities based on level of challenge or even learning preference. So after examining the research and the area of need at my school, I began my action research, which was a mixed method of qualitative and quantitative data. I chose to triangulate this data by analyzing 3 instruments: surveys, observation of participants, and interviews with those participants. I also conducted a professional development on gifted and talented identification, differentiation, and the various myths of giftedness. So the procedures were as follows. The first step was participant survey questions. Participants went onto a Google survey and answered Likert scale questions to show the high and low points of teacher understanding. These questions were about Infinite Campus. Can you find a gifted student service plan? Can you access it in your student's portal? Once looking at it, do you know how to read it and understand it? And then one step further into the classroom, can you differentiate for it? I then observed classroom teachers, how they interacted with gifted students, how they differentiated with them. And then I finally interviewed these participants to see how do they think their observation went? What could they have done more for their gifted learners? How did they improve after attending the professional development? And so I then took qualitative data from interviews and observations, quantitative data from the Google surveys, and coded themes across individual participants, triangulating from the instruments, and then coded meta themes for all participants in the study. A little background on my participants. They were 8 teachers at Boone County High School. They represented different levels of experience and different content areas. Uh, I wanted to choose varied participants to examine the differences in their teacher training for gifted education, as well as how professional development within the district could improve. Participant data was protected. They signed consent letters. They were identified by numbers, and everything was stored digitally on Google Drive. And all of this data will be destroyed by January 1st, 2020. So here are 2 figures showing participant years of experience. You can see half of my participants have between 0 to 3 years of teaching experience. So half of them were newer teachers. One was between 4 to 7 years, one between 20 and 23 years of teaching, and one participant at 30 years of teaching experience. I thought this would be a great range to examine gifted education in our school. Also, participants represented different areas of content. So I had 4 social studies teachers, 1 art teacher, 1 English teacher, and 2 business teachers. So this saw a wide variety of departments within Boone County High School. So when it came to data collection and the analysis, I needed to identify it through preparation, exploration, and analysis. To prepare, prior to data, I developed the survey, the observation form, and the interview log. These would be my 3 instruments to collect the data. They were developed by credible research to show appropriate qualitative and quantitative data. So these participants completed the survey, allowed me to observe them, attended a PD, and then met one-on-one for an interview. Then I explored the results. All of these results had been stored on a Google form. The responses were compiled and coded for commonalities. And I used handwritten notes as well as recorded interviews that were transcribed in real time using Transcribe Live, an app from the Google App Store, to initially code for those commonalities. Finally, the analysis. All 3 instruments were completed, and I coded individual themes and then meta themes and then triangulated all of that data. All of these interpretations of the data were rooted in my research and in the research question. This led to the results, findings, and the recommendations that I'll be sharing here in a moment. Here were the initial survey results. You can see that very rarely were participants very knowledgeable about seeing if a student was identified, viewing their gifted student service plan, then viewing that identification, those student options, and knowing how to differentiate. Often the participants fell at either little to no knowledge, and some being knowledgeable. This was very eye-opening to see that teachers in our building were not prepared to understand Infinite Campus and how to even read these service plans that are made for our gifted learners. Observations went well. Some of the major themes I saw were the rapport teachers had with gifted learners, if they were differentiating, what those activities were like. Was the lesson chunked into smaller portions? Were activities tiered by difficulty? Did they show opportunities for critical thinking? What was discussion like? Did gifted learners have an opportunity to think individually, pair, and then share out as a whole? What was the structure like? Were students on task? Overall, it was a very eye-opening experience to sit in other teachers' classes. I learned a lot as well. Something that could really benefit all teachers is to observe others and see what they're doing and activities they're doing in their classes. Then I met with all my participants one-on-one and conducted interviews. Many of the participants discussed that they wanted more awareness for gifted and talented education in the school, and